Good afternoon. Welcome to Ask Dr. Geier Live, wherever you're watching. Hope you're making today your masterpiece. It is that time once a week, the time and place, the only time or place that I answer your injury questions. Injuries, surgeries, rehab, recovery, all of that kind of good stuff. So if you have questions or comments or whatever, leave those in the chat, not in the comments, because I cannot see the comments through this streaming system that I use. So leave those in the chat. Also, remember, everything that I talk about here, this is not medical advice. I haven't seen you, I haven't examined you, looked at x-rays, looked at MRIs. I am just giving you information for educational purposes only. Hopefully you can take that information, go back to your orthopedic surgeon, hopefully understand your injury and what he or she told you a little bit better, but I am not telling you what to do. I cannot do that, and nobody can do that through online platforms, social media, things like that. So I will stay as long as there are questions. If we don't have many questions, it'll be a really, really short episode. All right, Abraham Jane. Did meniscus arthroscopic surgery, not repair. Still feel shock and popping in my knee. What could be the cause? I think he said month out. It's hard to know. I mean, the worrisome thing potentially when you're trimming out part of the meniscus tear would be that there's still a little portion of the tear left that's still catching. Typically, we take enough out that it doesn't propagate and become another tear. Having said that, most surgeons will tell you within a month. I don't know that that's necessarily anything to be worried about. It could be some aspect of the swelling in the knee, inflammation from the surgery itself. It could be any number of things, but if there's a potentially worrisome thing, that might be it. If that's still there, 3-4 months after surgery, that's where I think most orthopedic surgeons might consider repeating an MRI. The problem with an MRI early after that surgery, and honestly, anytime after a partial meniscectomy, is sometimes it is very difficult to tell if there's a new tear versus maybe a little bit of scar tissue that's developed at that site, or just, something like that. So I don't know how helpful that necessarily would be. All right, what else? Feel free to ask away. Otherwise, it's going to be a very short episode. I hope everybody here in the United States had a fantastic 4th of July on Monday. I hope everybody stayed safe but had fun this week. No holidays here this weekend, but should still be a fun weekend. While I wait for the last few, if any, questions, please know that if you would like to see me formally as a patient, although I have offices in Charleston, South Carolina and Charlotte, North Carolina, I see people from outside of those two states in our Charleston office. There's a link to my website and you can request an appointment. Somebody with our office will get back to you. All right. Let's see here. Jake says meniscus repair. So this is different than what Abraham was talking about 12 weeks ago. Knee feels good. Soft tissue work, physio. Aggravated a little bit. I don't know that I'd be terribly concerned about it. Again, I haven't seen or examined what's going on, but I don't know that necessarily something like that would re-injure the meniscus. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but just any kind of work with a physical therapist, not terribly likely. I'd be much more worried about it from jogging, from doing some sort of twisting maneuver with weight on it, something like that, rather than soft tissue work. Again, can't say because I wasn't there and haven't examined you, but that would be my thought. Jamie, it's been a year since I fractured my shoulder, still in pain, and good afternoon to you. Did the shots, doesn't last long and comes back. Yeah, it would really, let me get, trying to get that off the screen. It would be tough to know. My personal opinion, and you may have done this, would be, if you have a fracture, and it depends on where the pain is coming from. That's where it's really tricky to give answers without doing an exam. But I would probably, at that far out, if you haven't already, if I was the physician, I'd consider trying to figure out what the cause of that pain was, whether that's an MRI or else otherwise. Same with the injections. It's hard to know why that didn't help without knowing what the actual cause of the pain is. That's where it gets a little tricky, but that would be kind of my thought there. Abram, can building my thigh muscle and calf get me back to sports after yeah, absolutely. Getting your strength back is very, very helpful, and not just helpful, almost critical to get back to sports, and not just being able to play sports, but be able to do everything you want to do on the field, court, wherever, the way you were before you got hurt. Steven, athlete, mid-30s, lifting, competitive, crunching, clicking my right elbow. So what diagnostics? That's x-rays, MRIs, things like that. I would start, honestly, with x-rays. This is really true with just about any joint. Yes, x-rays only show bones, but there's a lot you can infer about some of the soft tissue structures on x-ray just based on joint space narrowing, irregularity of the contour of the end of the bone, a little bony flex in the joint. There can be all sorts of things. Obviously, you'd see fractures, stress fractures, things like that. Plus, x-rays are very often going to be paid for, at least here in the United States. If you go straight to an MRI, especially if you don't get that through an orthopedic surgeon, very likely that your insurance may say, hey, we're not going to cover that. Having said that, if x-rays are negative, and depending on the nature of the exam, I think that's where an MRI potentially could be helpful. I will say there is a lot of, you can have, in fact, I've got it in my right elbow, you can have clicking in your right elbow with no actual structural damage. So that's one of the tricky things when it comes to elbow issues. You can have a little plica band or something that catches, but is not something you'd go in surgically and do much about. Where was I? Ulnar nerve slipping. Yeah, you wouldn't see ulnar nerve instability or subluxation on an MRI, but that's something you could figure out by physical exam. So an orthopedic surgeon should be able to figure that out pretty readily. Now, ulnar nerve subluxation is really, really tricky without fixing it surgically. That typically just keeps, that's the nerve on the inside of your elbow. It snaps back and forth across your medial epicondyle, that bony prominence. That's really tricky because there's not much in the way of conservative treatment that keeps that in place. Mary, fractured my femur September 2019, still using a cane to get around. I'm not sure so there's the rest of the question. Am I going to recover? I can't tell you without knowing if it healed. This is where this type of Ask Dr. Geier doesn't really help, because I'm without being able to examine you, look at x-rays, things like that. I hope so, but I can't say that. You need to know if the fracture healed, why the reason you're having so much pain, things like that. What could be the cause of arthritis in the knee? I don't know in your specific case. There's lots of reasons people can get arthritis due to chronic inflammation and weight and things related to that I talk about a lot on my Better Than Ever show. Sometimes after people have had meniscus surgery and had part of it trimmed out, we know that you're much more likely to develop arthritis in that knee than you are in the meniscus on the side that doesn't have a part of the meniscus taken out. It can be due to instability from a prior injury. There's lots of potential causes for arthritis. An MRI, I don't know that a CT is necessary unless you're looking at, there aren't that many times we need a CT scan in orthopedics. We do it a lot of times after trauma, especially when you're looking at fractures that go into a joint, but MRI is typically the better study. Again, it would depend on what that showed as far as kind of what the next step is. All right, so I mentioned in the description, if you do want to come see me in Charleston, South Carolina, that information is there, drdavidgeier.com. Fill out the contact form. We could figure that out. There's also other ways we could potentially work together if you can't get down this way. Also, remember, every Thursday afternoon, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, I do Better Than Ever Live. I talk about health, wellness, exercise, the latest research in nutrition, mental health, wellness, anti-aging, longevity. Sometimes we talk peptides and exosomes and things like that. So make sure you check that out. Also, remember, 2 podcasts. Better Than Ever Live is also put on wherever you get your podcasts in an audio form, so get that. Also, Better Than Ever Daily, my less than 1 minute a day health tip every Monday through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You can listen to 15, 20 of them on the way to work. So definitely check out Better Than Ever Live and Better Than Ever Daily. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Also, make sure you subscribe to my social media channels, especially here, YouTube. Click the bell to be notified when I'm on live, and occasionally do that sometimes when it's not scheduled. So make sure you click the bell to be notified, and it'll tell you whenever we have new videos coming out. All right, that is all I've got for you today. A very, very quick show. Very, very happy that you're here. Hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you next Friday. Have a wonderful week.